Hello, everybody. Welcome to Live from the Tower, your weekly Destiny show. And for those of you on YouTube, welcome. I probably have had uploaded previous episodes before. I have to double check at the time I'm recording, so I don't really know. Um, but I'm gonna be uploading to YouTube as well as all the podcasting platforms. So if you're on YouTube, thanks for watching. And if you're on the podcast platforms, thanks for listening. So, we've had some interesting updates this week. I've finally caught up on all the weekly stories. I did the exotic mission. I have some thoughts about Fireteam Finder, speculations on what this wishes mode event could be. I want to discuss gear bloating a little bit, and I want to look ahead towards the rest of the season and kind of talk about what we're going to be doing here on the podcast. So, first and foremost, I finally caught up. I did Star-Crossed. I did the Week 6 story. I saw the spoiler where Osiris said we have to follow Crow through the portal a week prior to finding out that Crow wants to go through the portal. So let's just talk about that for a second. So Star-Crossed is the exotic mission that is tied to the seasonal story, much like Operation Seraph? Where we had to go up to the orbital station to make the pulse rifle in Season of the Seraph. And it wasn't too bad. I did try it by myself the week it came out, and I must have been so tired. I didn't really understand the lock mechanic on the doors, and I didn't want to look at a guide. Since then, I watched a guide, but I didn't have solo operative, and I know it's part of the seasonal story, but something like that I felt would go much quicker if I used a fire team. So that's exactly what I did. I went into Fireteam Finder for the first time since it's been implemented into the game. And at first, I tried looking for a fire team, and there were only a handful of listings, most of which were focused on getting the triumphs and kind of just doing it on legend and going about and getting probably the catalysts. As we know, this has multiple catalysts, like, what was it? Revision Zero was the pulse rifle from Seraph. So then I decided to make my own LFG post, so to speak, and what I did with that is I just posted, looking for fire team, no mic needed, basically just tagging and saying that I just wanted to run the mission, wasn't really doing anything extravagant, and within about, I'd say 5 minutes, I had a fire team already set up. 2 people signed up, we joined, and we dove right in. To be honest, it took a couple minutes in the second room to figure out the lock. Not to figure out necessarily, because one of the guys on the team had the bow, which is the weapon you get for doing the mission. But it took a couple minutes just to sync. We didn't wipe, but once we kind of synced up, then it was just a matter of going through the mission, doing the platforming puzzle, and nuking the boss, which was relatively easy. In hindsight, did I necessarily need to use Fireteam Finder to find a group? No, I didn't. In retrospect, I'm glad I did, because it just made the mission more enjoyable. And I think, for me at least, Destiny is at its best when it's the most enjoyable. If it's like really grindy and hard, I tend not to have fun outside of, say, raids. And even then, if we start wiping multiple times on a raid, it can get kind of tiring. And I'm sure you guys have experienced that as well. So those are pretty much the first 3 things off my notes. Fireteam Finder, again, is relatively easy to use. I do like the amount of tabs. So it's not just like a normal LFG forum where you just like scroll aimlessly. When you load in and you click find instead of invite under your Fireteam banner, there are a bunch of tabs that you can click under. So it's seasonal, strike, PvP, gambit, raid, story, stuff like that. And I honestly can see myself using this in the future to kind of get triumphs and to get certain things that I need a fire team for, or I would like a fire team for, and I can't really form a fire team when my clanmates aren't really around and our schedules don't sync up all the time. So all in all, I actually do like it as a main solo player, and I hope to use it more in the future. And, you know, we'll see if, I don't know if all my experiences will be as enjoyable as the first one, but one can always hope. Exotic mission, not too tough on normal difficulty. I'm sure once you get the hang of it and the timing of everything, you can kind of blitz right through it, especially if you have a good build and solo operative. As for Legend, I would most likely do Legend with a fire team. Sorry, I blanked for a second. But I would most likely do Legend with a fire team. I don't know if I'd ever try it for myself. I'm not really one of those players that does solo dungeons and solo nightfalls and things like that. I'm much more at my best when I'm in a fire team with experienced players that say, hey, so this is what we're going to do. You do X, Y, and Z. You know, and that's how I've been doing raids since Destiny 1. It's how I do them in D2. It's how I do dungeons, minus Warlord's Ruin, which I did do blind with 2 of my teammates. Day 1, that was a big accomplishment for me. I've never done that before, ever, so that was really fun. But I kind of thrive when it's, hey, we're gonna do this raid. In this encounter, all you need to worry about is stand here, shoot X, Y, and Z, and call out W. I can do that. It may take one wipe to kind of let it absorb and sink in, but once it does, it's a fantastic time, at least for me. So the next thing on my notes is, what are wishes? Oh, I'm sorry. Before I do that, talking about the seasonal story, I just kind of want to wrap all this up. So week 5 was the exotic mission, and where it's also we get the, not the reveal because it's mentioned in the lore, but we see Osiris use Strand, which I didn't see anybody talk about. More people were obviously concerned with the whole follow Crow into the Traveler kind of thing, follow Crow through the portal, but seeing Osiris use Strand was really cool to me. It reminded me of seeing Eris and Drifter use Stasis back in Beyond Light, but it was also cool because Osiris, he lost the light, so now he has an ability, like he can do something. He's still very much mortal. He still very well could die in the final shape, because remember, spoiler alert happened. They only put that gun in when they kill people. We've already had 2 deaths. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if Bungie killed off a bunch of characters going into the final shape. It kind of makes sense if they want to get out of some contracts. It kind of makes sense if they want to kind of free up some things going forward for the future of the game and the franchise. But it was cool. And he didn't just like use it like he wielded it in his hands. No. Mara Sov threatened Riven, and Osiris just Spider-Man'd and went whoosh, and then just reined her back. Clearly, he's not stronger than Mara Sov because all she did was throw her hands down in a huff and shatter the Strand. But still, very cool to see. It must be, you know, I'm glad he's doing something on Neptune when he's out there, because I sure as hell haven't been back to Neptune since Season of the Deep. And I know there's veil containment, but I don't care, because they put it in this. You know, there are some, obviously we know the original rumors that Lightfall, that some of this stuff was cut from Witch Queen, but there's new rumors kind of speculating and circling the internet that, you know, Lightfall and Final Shape, it was all supposed to be one big cohesive narrative. We know Final Shape never existed in the original vision. We don't know if that was devised when Luke Smith got moved to looking over the IP in a more transmedia narrative sense, or if it was before that. We have no idea. So Osiris using Strand, really cool. I love it. And next on the notes for today's, so this wishes thing, we don't really know what it is, and we haven't really been able to get any information. Now, it could be anything, to be 100% honest. What I think it could be and what it might be is it might be sort of, it could be another take on Court of Oryx, but the in the coil type of thing. So where you go up to Riven, and instead of picking a treasure, you kind of you pick like a modifier or something, or you make a wish. It could be a focusing mechanic for gear, which I really don't. I do we need any other focusing mechanics for gear? I mean, can we be completely honest with ourselves? It's just, we'll get to gear later. So they haven't said anything. We know it's coming in February, so it's coming in a month, a little under a month. We don't know when in February. It could be interesting. It could be padding. It most likely is padding, because we know there's only one egg left to find, and there's only 5 more quest steps. So what's either going to happen is we're going to find the egg next week, we're going to get a cutscene of Crow going into the portal, and then Osiris is going to get on the holo projector, and he's going to go, "Well, Guardian, we must figure out how Crow... we must wait for Mara to find Crow's presence in the Traveler. And so you just stay here and I'll let you know." This is a terrible Osiris. I can't do Osiris. Basically, Crow goes through, and it's going to take Mara about all the way to June or July, whenever the final shape's slated for release, to pinpoint his location, to then open the way with the ley lines to go through the portal. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, this is the 3rd season they've dragged out like this, but it feels the worst. Because I'm going to be honest, Season of Arrivals was dragged out, but Season of Arrivals was really fun, and I liked it a lot. There was a lot to do. There was a lot to catch up on. You got excited because not Final Shape, Beyond Light was this big, mysterious expansion. We were finally going to Europa. We were finally doing all this stuff. The Final Shape, it should be really exciting and really big, and that same kind of mystery. But between people starting to get not annoyed, but starting to kind of come to terms with the pyramids were flat and things like that, as well as Lightfall being the dud that it was narratively, it really makes you wonder if this season, or if Lightfall was on par with the Witch Queen, would this season be looked at the same way? Would this season, even though it's delayed, would people still be excited like they were for Beyond Light or for Witch Queen? At least with Season of the Lost, we had the 30th anniversary pack. We know from sources inside Bungie that there is no 30th anniversary pack because the turnaround to push Final Shape back came way too late in development. We do know they're working on something. I don't know if it's the Pathfinder system. I don't know if it's this Wishes thing. Who knows what it could be, but I'm sure we'll find out in time. So, before I kind of talk about gear, we're just looking ahead to the rest of the season. We know we have Wishes, we have Moments of Triumph coming next month. I can't remember if Guardian Games is coming next month. Honestly, I should have looked this up. I didn't, but it's okay. We know there are some smaller holiday style events and things coming in the next set of months to get us ready for the Final Shape. And that leads me to my last point, and that's gear bloating. and this could also be a gear slash power bloating. It's a two-part topic, and this is brought on from me going back and playing Destiny 1. We have this long gap. I'm playing a bunch of stuff that I got from Christmas. I'm having a bunch of fun with that, playing Modern Warfare 3. But I decided to go back to Destiny 1. I wanted to see I wanted to relive the journey, and when I found out that Shadowkeep, Witch Queen, and Beyond Light were all free on Epic Games, I thought that was great. Because now I can play Destiny 1 all the way through to completion, hop on Epic Games, start fresh characters, and play in kind of that fresh light. And then, depending how close we are to Final Shape, buy Lightfall. Obviously, I most likely wouldn't buy the deluxe edition, because by that point the seasons would probably be over. And let's be honest, even if I could buy the deluxe, or even if it was early enough to buy the deluxe edition, I'd rather save the $100 or the extra, I should say, what is it, like $40-$50 to buy Final Shape, which I still haven't pre-ordered yet. I didn't pre-order Lightfall until the day before launch, just so I could pre-download it. And I'll probably do the same thing with Final Shape. But going back and playing through Destiny 1, you notice design choices that I think make Destiny 1 better in some regards than Destiny 2. So, things I like in Destiny 2 more than Destiny 1. I like crafting. I like focusing. Like, that's fine. Targeting loot is okay. The reputation system, I enjoy, because instead of... To a degree, I like that in D1, if you wanted cosmetics, there was an option for you. In D2, you just rank up, you get an engram. That's it. And if you have all the armor and you have the weapons you want, then those engrams just kind of collect until the next season, where they get deprecated and removed from the inventory. But one thing Destiny 1 does that Destiny 2 doesn't do anymore is the initial grind to level cap. So for those of you who didn't play D1, you would start... I have 3 characters. I deleted one to make a new one. So I have a max level warlock, max light. I have a hunter who's close to max light, but she did all the Rise of Iron stuff. So I made a new titan. I've played for about roughly around maybe 5 hours. I just finished up everything you can do at the beginning on Earth. So that includes the entire Fallen storyline culminating in the Sepix Prime strike. And I've started the moon, which is kind of how I'm going to play. I'm going to do everything in the one zone, then go to the next zone, and then so on and so forth, instead of bouncing back and forth. So what I've noticed is that in that 5-hour span, I've mainly had common gear with a handful of uncommon gear, which is then quickly replaced by common gear that has a higher light level. I've only really had 2 rare drops, boots and I think a machine gun in the heavy weapon slot. Other than that, it's still common gear, it's still uncommon gear, it's still white gear, it's still green gear. And I like that. I actually enjoy that, because you get the sense of progression. Destiny 2, you don't get that sense. So when you start, and I did this to kind of get a feel for it, but when you start Destiny 2, you do the intro, intro campaign, the New Light experience, where you go to the Cosmodrome, you talk to Shao Han, you do a couple quests, you do a quest to discover fragments and aspects, you save Shao Han, and then it's like, okay, you can go to the tower. About halfway through that, you're given a blue drop. You don't find it, you're given it, and you're given a legendary. Now, because I like to look around, and I like to search, and I like to look for loot and stuff, and I remembered where some of these things are. I went and found some of the gold chests. And now, new players may not do that, but because they're on your map in your director, they might. At one point, within the third mission of the New Light experience, I had a full set of blue armor. And every drop just like boosts your power. It's just power boost, power boost, power boost. Which isn't a problem. But the problem is because if you were a veteran player and you wanted to roll an alt, what would happen is the game, because they implemented this system years ago into the game, what the game would do is they would look at your character and they'd go, okay, he's got a warlock on his account that's this light level. Neat. Then they'd go into your vault and they go, oh, look at all this gear he's got. Oh, look at all these power levels. And then they would do some equation, and every drop you'd get on your new character would essentially rocket your power level up faster and faster. It's a catch-up mechanic. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a catch-up mechanic, but I'm saying it should be an opt-in mechanic, or it should be a mechanic that doesn't take effect until in a later expansion, like Witch Queen. Say you're a new player and you bought Shadowkeep and Beyond Light. I'm dropping my cap. You bought Shadowkeep and Beyond Light. You get through Beyond Light, you have a decent amount of gear. And you're like, I'm gonna buy Witch Queen. And your friends are like, oh, and you started to experience some endgame content. And your friends are like, oh, come do this master raid with us. It's not that much more difficult than a normal run. Your power's not high enough. But you just bought Witch Queen. So now you can power up your guardian real fast, almost like a boost. But it slingshots you. I just wish it was more of an opt-in rather than an always-on feature. And this leads me into my second point with Destiny 2. Destiny 2 has been around for so long, it feels a bit bloated. I actually had to consciously say to myself tonight while I was playing, oh, these are new guns that just came out. Let me try them. Because ever since loadouts came out, I'm set in my ways. I have a set gun to use with this super and this exotic armor piece for solar. I have one for arc. I have one for stasis. I have one for void. I have one for strand. Why would I want to use anything else? And they keep dumping weapons and weapons and weapons and weapons on you. And armor, but armor doesn't really... Armor's even worse because most people, once they get their artifice set from a dungeon or the high stat roll from the raids or whatever, that's it. That's the armor they use. They're not going to use the Whimwright armor for the season because it gives you a bonus reputation because they don't care enough. I'm sure some people do. I'm not saying everybody, but you get my point. So they keep just dumping and dumping and dumping and dumping. And the problem with armor is you don't earn enough transmog to justify how many sets there are. Now, to be fair, I know we only really get 1, maybe 2 armor sets a season if there's a dungeon. but there's already so much armor in the game that I don't think, even since transmog came out, even if you did, what's the thing, 10 bounties a season, you'd have enough to unlock the armor. Maybe you would, someone's got to do the math. I'm not a mathematician, so I don't know. It's just what it feels like to me. My vault's almost always full. I'm constantly just deleting guns because world drops that I already have, I have the roll that I want. Red borders still don't drop frequently enough for me to chase the gun that I want to craft, that I want to use. And one of the things that really resonated this thought in me was the fact that I remember what my first legendary was in Destiny 1. I've been playing D2 since vanilla. I have no idea what my first legendary was. More than likely, it was a Better Devils. More than likely, it could have been on an origin story, or it could have been a Night Watch. I have absolutely no idea. But you know what I remember in D1? The Matador. Matador was my first legendary gun in D1, and I still have it in my vault. But that's just my take on it. I think there's too much gear, and that's why I'm also for when these episodes end, give me Destiny 3. Do Destiny 3. And if you don't want to do this MMO light genre anymore, and you want to make it like an old school single player campaign, like in Call of Duty or something like that, you already have the out. We know our Guardian dies. Saint 14 gives our eulogy. For those of you that don't know, go to YouTube, type in Caverns of Time, Guardian grave, and you'll see a tombstone, a coffin with the image of a Guardian holding one of the 3 exotic swords from D1, which canonically our Guardian has, and a ghost at the top. And Saint gives our eulogy. But again, that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you think down below. And if you're on Spotify, there are little polls and questions I do every week, so you can find that in the episode description probably. Other than that, it's going to be a long season. I am looking forward to Final Shape. We are still going to have some stuff to talk about. And I will kind of update you guys on my Destiny 1 journey as I go through the game. But in any case, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, fly safe, Guardians.